Hi, I am Allie Camilletti, and you are listening to Snack Leadership. I will be talking about everything leadership, broken down into bite-sized pieces. You will hear what different leadership skills look like in organizations and how they can rise teams up or take them down. I help leaders build resilience and improve performance by bringing awareness to opportunity behaviors in my business. Spark your mindset. I provide leadership and sales coaching, as well as team building and guest speaking. My hope is for you to feel inspiration and to create a spark in your mindset. Hi, everyone. Today we are talking about Relentless. Relentless is the unwavering commitment to push forward despite obstacles, setbacks, and fatigue. Refusing to let circumstances dictate your pace or your purpose. It's not about being ruthless or burning out, but about maintaining a steady, determined focus on what matters most until the work is done and the vision is realized. I just got to listen to the recording with Sean, and I must say, I am so grateful for that conversation and impressed with him and relate so much to what he talked about. And so today I'm going to hit on a little bit more of a personal note on how I talk about Relentless, because as I listened to him, I was wondering, where did my relentlessness come from? And I broke that down a bit, and I truly believe my relentlessness came from my upbringing, right? Is it nurture versus nature? I think about that a lot, having my daughter and being that she's adopted. But for me, I grew up in the 70s, and I just spent a day hiking with some friends, and we were reflecting, and they're like, wouldn't it be great to go back to that childhood in the 70s where you just went and played all day, and then your parents called you in at the end of the day, and it was just so much fun and freedom, and you felt safe. And I was like, oh gosh, don't you dare take me back to that time period. I don't want to go back at all, because that wasn't my childhood. And I was thinking about that, and that's where the relentlessness comes from. It was my childhood not being that. My mom worked a lot, and I had a really checked out stepfather that I basically just tagged along with. And then when I turned 10, my sister was born, and I was pretty much her caretaker because my mom worked, checked out stepdad. So I didn't really get a childhood. And now I live a little bit of my childhood through my daughter, but I still have that piece of me that is like, no, you need to be an adult at a young age because that's how you're pretty much set up in this world, and accepting that. But the relentlessness came from that upbringing and myself feeling like I'm going to do this differently in my life. I'm not going to look like the mom who works all the time and the kids hanging out with the dad all day. My life is going to look different. And so I was very determined and relentless in my life. Really, I have been my entire life. So when we look about relentless, it's not ruthless by any means, right? It's not burning out. It's really about steady determination, focused on what matters most until you're there. And so what does that look like for me? It's changed over the years, right? Basically, for me, I've had moments of burnout, absolutely, but my determination has never failed. They say, is it not a personal trait? Or is it a discipline built under real pressure? Usually not chosen in comfortable situations and circumstances. So it was probably built from my childhood of having to be relentless in my circumstances. And what does this look like? So I'm going to give an example. I've talked a lot about my adoption and my infertility, and that was a great example of being relentless. But another piece was when I was in my 30s and I had a crazy tumor that wrapped around my liver, and I had major surgery. And at the time, I was married. And during the surgery and going through that, I had my own business. And I didn't tell anyone what I was going through. There was only a handful of people that knew because I needed to still make money to pay for the bills that I was incurring. And at the same time that I was going through all this, my husband at the time had an affair. And so during my actual recovery, which it was major surgery, it's really kind of all fuzzy for me because there was so much trauma wrapped around it on all different aspects. But I ended up having my grandfather pass at the same time during my recovery and finding out about my husband's affair and him saying that he wanted to be with her and they were in love. Great. Wonderful. So I had a lot to focus on at that time. And I was just like, all right, thank you. This has been great. I'll see you another time. And I had to focus on my grandfather passing and now the care of my grandmother, who I knew was going to be my responsibility. So you talk about relentless of just like, I was going to do what was right. And what was right for me was to take care of my grandmother. I knew if it was ever going to turn out how it ended up turning out, that it would be my responsibility because my biological father, he struggled with addiction his entire life and he was never an option to be that person. And he was an only child and I was an only child. So it was in my lap. And I was really relentless with the care for her, right? And I'll kind of walk us through, obstacles, external blockers. Whew. So being relentless in the care for my grandmother that was so important for me at the time, basically the obstacles, it was my father. He was getting in the way and he was wanting money and he was not stable and he was showing up and asking her for money. So that was a huge setback. And the setbacks, they talk about the things that actually go wrong, not just get in the way. And so what went wrong was her mental stability with him being closer to her than I was able to be. She was in California at the time, about 8 hours from me, and I was up in Oregon. And so that was a major setback. And I had this caretaker that was watching her contact me and she said, "Hey, this relative you have, she's just taken your grandmother to a lawyer and wants to change everything so that she's executive director." And I was like, oh gosh. So with that, this woman I had been warned about and knew over the years had taken a lot of money from my grandmother. My grandmother never had a ton, but she had a little bit of money. And so I basically went and took my grandmother. And my grandmother, I knew she wasn't going to want to go. So in a sense, I had to kidnap her. And I will never forget that day. I brought her up from California to Oregon and I was driving her Cadillac and she's like hitting me with a cane as I'm driving and I'm holding down on the lock button so she doesn't jump out. She finally gave in and I just was relentless in that I was going to do everything I could to keep her safe. I didn't know how long she was going to live. I didn't know what was going to happen with my dad and trying to protect her from him. It was a lot. He would go and say he was going to get her groceries and she'd give him money and he'd come back and she's like, "Where are the groceries?" And he goes, "Oh, you never gave me any money." So I was dealing with that. You talk about the setbacks of that dynamic. It's like, oh my gosh, can you just show up and be an adult for this time period? No. Which kind of was a theme for me is I never really had anybody that showed up and could be really strong by my side. And so I was relentless. And they talk about fatigue. So the internal one, when the vision is still true, but your energy isn't. And that's what happened for me. So my grandmother was on a lot of drugs during this time. They put her on pain pills and all kinds of anti-anxiety. And I brought her up, and the doctor here was in Bend was like, no, I'm not giving her these things. And so we got her off of all the medication she was on. And I had a really good friend say to me, she said, Allie, you were still recovering from major surgery, a divorce, you own your own business, and you're having to caretake for your grandmother. It's too much. No one can do this. And my perseverance was like, oh yeah, I can. My relentlessness is like, there's nobody else. This is my position. And so she ended up really having me hear her. And I found this adorable little spot where this couple took care of 5 elderly women on a ranch. They brought in music. The women got to sit there and watch The Price is Right and look out at the farm. And I had her stay there. Well, she was there for a few months. And every day I'd go visit her and she'd cry, I want to go home. I want to be in my home. And I'm like, of course you do. I know. And so I ended up hiring a woman because she was healthier now. She wasn't on so much medication. And this woman was caretaking for my grandmother. I took my grandmother home because my grandmother said, when I die, I'm going to die fast and I want to be in my home. And I wanted to honor that. So I took her home. It was Christmas because it was the first Christmas I'd ever spent with her and my father, my bio father. And I left afterwards, which was really hard. It was very hard for me to leave her. I was scared. And she ended up passing January 5th. I have no qualms about every move I made with her because I was relentless. My vision for her was that I honored her end of life the best way I could. And getting her to a place where she was healthy enough mentally was very important to me, and she was. And she was able to be clear in what she wanted. And then listening to her as far as what she really wanted to be in her own home. And I honored that. And I'm so glad I did because she told me around Thanksgiving and I started setting up the plans to get her back by Christmas. And then that close, January 5th, she ended up passing. So as we reflect, the obstacles, oh my gosh, many obstacles, right? The obstacles, really, my father. And then the setback of things that went wrong were how he was handling the situation with her and being around her. It wasn't healthy for her. And then my fatigue of just being like, I can't do this. It's too much. I mean, I was in my early 30s. You can imagine this is like 20 years ago that this happened. So I feel good about all the decisions I made. Absolutely. So when we talk about pace versus purpose, refusing to let circumstances dictate your pace or purpose, right? Circumstances will always try to set your speed and redefine your goal. Relentless is holding both steady anyway. Now, distinguishing stubbornness. Was I stubborn, rigid, blind to feedback? No, I wasn't, right? At all. That woman who has passed now that I have so many great memories of that said, Allie, it's too much. It's too much. Because I was so used to like, no, I do it all. This is what I do. Nothing's too much. Really, I was able to listen and adjust my course without abandoning the ultimate destination. So what does this look like for me today, right? Not a single heroic moment per se, the unglamorous version, showing up again on the hard days, the unremarkable Tuesdays where nothing's going right and you keep moving anyways. Yeah. That is basically how I show up. I'm relentless. And today, as we speak, I'm in this place of, right? I have a daughter who I am um, parallel parenting with, and she's been gone for I've seen her a little bit, but basically 3 weeks. It's just how the summer worked out with the parenting plan and her overnight camp. And I made the commitment to myself to focus on myself during this time. And it's been a focus of spirituality. And for me, what that's looked like is learning that, yes, I'm relentless in my spirituality focus, but also going with flow of it, not pushing too hard, right? It's not rigid or ruthless, and letting it flow. And so I have been focusing on my body as far as my health, my exercise. I've been doing some, I don't know if we call it cold plunging. I've been sitting in the river. The river is like 55 degrees, they say. So I've been doing that on mornings after my walks. I've been meditating, which is something I've never really been great at diving into. And I have been journaling. And I've just been really focusing on being present and slowing down. Because if I am good here in my heart, and I know that, and in my body and my spirit, then it will flow everywhere. I can still be relentless in my vision for me being the healthiest person I can be, to now raise a daughter that is so important to me and that I really want to set up for this world, because this world is not easy. We know that. So relentless is the steady refusal to let obstacles, setbacks, or fatigue decide when you stop. I'm going to leave with you this quote by Tim S. Grover. Being relentless means demanding more of yourself than anyone else could ever demand of you. Knowing that every time you stop, you can still do more. You must do more. Thank you for tuning in to Snack Leadership. I hope you felt inspiration, motivation, and felt your mindset spark. Snack Leadership is recorded and produced by myself, Ali Camilletti, and music by Shireen Amini.